They call it a rejection. A simple, clean word for a dirty, brutal act. But you and I know the truth. It wasn't a rejection. It was a public execution of the man you thought you were. And she was the one who swung the axe. Not with anger, but with the casual indifference of someone taking out the trash. She didn't just leave you. She dismantled you piece by piece in front of an audience that pretended not to watch, but absorbed every second of your demise. Every sideways glance from her friends was a judgment. Every stifled laugh from across the room was a nail in the coffin of your self-respect. You weren't a suitor she turned down. You were a problem she solved, an inconvenience she swatted away with a flick of her wrist, leaving you to decompose in a pool of your own humiliation. Replay the memory, not the sanitized version you tell yourself to fall asleep, but the high-definition, slow-motion horror film that plays in your mind at 3 a.m. The way the ambient noise of the room seemed to fade into a dull hum, leaving only the sound of your own blood pounding in your ears, a desperate drumbeat for a battle already lost. You stood before her, an open book, every hope and insecurity laid bare on the pages of your face. You offered your loyalty, your future, your devotion, the grand sacrifice of the nice guy, believing it was a currency of immense value, a treasure she would be foolish to refuse. And then she looked at you. It wasn't the look of a woman turning down a man. It was the look of a biologist examining a specimen under a microscope. A flicker of curiosity, followed by clinical assessment, and finally, a quiet, soul-crushing dismissal. The verdict was pity. Your grand offering wasn't just refused, it was devalued to nothing before your very eyes. The silence that followed her soft, surgical words wasn't empty. It was dense, heavy, and filled with the unspoken consensus of everyone in that room. You had failed. You had aimed for the stars, and hadn't even cleared the treetops. You had become a cautionary tale, a ghost that would haunt that social circle for weeks. You went home that night and looked for answers in all the wrong places. You cursed her coldness. You blamed your own perceived inadequacies. You raged against a world that rewards arrogance and punishes sincerity. But you were asking the wrong questions because you were operating from a fundamentally flawed map of reality. The universe does not trade in fairness, it trades in power. And you had willingly, eagerly placed all of your power, all of your emotional sovereignty at her feet, as a sacrificial offering, hoping she would find you worthy. You misunderstood the fundamental nature of attraction. You thought it could be earned through service, begged for with devotion, or purchased with niceness. You were wrong. As the great unforgiving thinkers of history understood, the world is not a stage for romantic comedies. It is an arena of wills. We are like lambs in a field, frolicking under the watchful eye of the butcher, who selects one for his victim, and then another. In your desperate quest for her approval, you didn't just act like the lamb. You bleated, you offered your own neck, and you were surprised when the knife fell. You believed your submission was a virtue. In the unforgiving court of human nature, it was a confession of your own powerlessness. And powerlessness is the one sin that nature never, ever forgives. But what if that public execution was not an end, but a necessary, brutal beginning? What if the man she destroyed was a weak, supplicating imitation of a man who needed to die? What if the fire of that humiliation could be used not to consume you, but to forge you into something unrecognizable? Something so solid, so self-contained, so powerful, that she could never again dismiss it, and could never hope to control it? There is a path, from the ashes of that moment, to a throne of absolute self-sovereignty, a state of being where her validation is not only unnecessary, but is a laughable, worthless currency, a state where respect is not requested, but commanded by your very presence. And the first step on that path is understanding the one brutal strategic mistake you made that guaranteed your failure from the moment you decided you wanted her. It is the secret that separates the men who are chosen from the men who are discarded. Before we dissect that fatal mistake and begin rebuilding you from the ground up, I have a command. If you are ready to stop being a pawn in someone else's game and start dictating the terms of your own reality, subscribe to Psychological Dominion now. Activate all notifications, because every lesson is a weapon you cannot afford to miss in the war for your own soul. Give this video a like to signal your commitment to this new doctrine. And in the comments below, I want you to do two things. First, declare your battlefield. Tell me what city or country you are watching from. Second, share the moment you realized the nice guy strategy was a lie. No long stories, no pleas for sympathy, just the raw, unfiltered truth of your awakening. Let the world know you are not alone. Let's dissect the architecture of your failure. You perceive that moment of public rejection as the event itself, the singular cataclysm that brought you to your knees. This is a profound strategic error. That rejection wasn't the cause of your defeat. It was the public announcement of a war you had already lost long before. The verdict was merely read in court that day, but the case had been decided weeks, months, perhaps even years earlier, in a series of silent, unacknowledged surrenders you made in the privacy of your own mind. You were not executed by her. You committed a slow, methodical suicide of self-respect, and she was simply the one who signed the death certificate. To understand the fall, you must understand its stages, the subtle decay of your authority that you mistook for compromise, for kindness, for love. It begins with the first phase, emotional concession. It never starts with a grand betrayal. It starts with something small, something you tell yourself is insignificant. She wants to see a movie you have no interest in. You wanted to work on your project, your business, your purpose. But to keep the peace, to see her smile, you concede. Sure, whatever you want, you say. In that moment, the first crack appears in the foundation of your sovereignty. She has tested the frame, and the frame has buckled. She was 5 minutes late, then 10, then 30. You waited, telling yourself it was no big deal. You greeted her with a smile, not with a standard. You taught her that your time was a negotiable commodity. She made a joke at your expense in front of her friends, a small jab at your clothes or your hobby. You laughed along, because you didn't want to be that guy who can't take a joke. But it wasn't a joke. It was a loyalty test, and you failed. You chose her comfort over your own dignity. She tested. You yielded. She won. Each concession, no matter how small, was a signal to her primal subconscious mind that your mission was secondary to her whims. You were communicating, in the most powerful language there is, the language of action, that your world revolved around her, not around your own purpose. And nothing is less attractive to the feminine spirit than a man whose world is a moon, orbiting a planet, rather than a sun, which holds planets in its orbit by its own gravitational force. This leads directly to the second phase, the loss of control. Your internal state, your emotional equilibrium, becomes tethered to her. A quick, affectionate text from her in the morning sets the tone for a productive day. A delayed response, a one-word answer or silence, sends you into a spiral of anxiety and doubt. You check your phone compulsively. You replay your last conversation, searching for any mistake you might have made. You are no longer the master of your own emotional reality. You have given her the remote control to your soul, and she can change the channel from joy to despair with the flick of her thumb. You stop making plans with your friends, waiting to see if she might be free. Your own life is put on hold, pending her approval. You have ceased to be an independent operator and have become a reactive agent, a satellite pinging a distant server for instructions. Your power is gone because you have outsourced it. You have placed the keys to your own happiness in her pocket, and now you must beg her to unlock your cage. This is the point where her silence becomes dominance, not inattention. When she withholds communication, she isn't just busy. She is observing the effect of her absence. She is watching you squirm. It is a power play, and by reacting emotionally, you prove its effectiveness. Then comes the third and perhaps most degrading phase, the quest for validation. Your actions are no longer driven by your own values or goals. They are performances designed to elicit a specific reaction from her. You buy her gifts not purely from a place of generosity, but from a desperate need to see her face light up, to receive that fleeting hit of approval that temporarily soothes your insecurity. You find yourself bragging subtly about a small success at work, angling for a, "Wow, that's amazing" from her. You dress not for yourself, but for her. You choose your words not to express your truth, but to construct an image you think she will find appealing. You have become a court jester, dancing and singing for the queen's amusement, hoping for a pat on the head. The tragedy is that the more you seek validation, the more it recedes from you. It is like trying to grab a fistful of water. True validation is a byproduct of a man living his purpose with unapologetic conviction. It is the respect a woman feels for a man who does not need her respect. By making her validation the goal, you guarantee you will never have it, because your very seeking of it proves you are empty without it. You have abandoned the core of the masculine journey, the forging of an unshakable sense of self through trial and mission, and replaced it with the pathetic quest to be told you are good enough by an external source. This desperate hunt for validation inevitably decays into the fourth phase, affective dependency. This is the addiction. Her presence is no longer a welcome addition to your life. It is a requirement for you to feel normal. The thought of losing her creates a visceral, physical panic. This fear becomes the primary driver of your behavior. You avoid any and all conflict. You swallow your opinions. You walk on eggshells. You become pathologically agreeable. You are terrified that if you show your true, unvarnished self, with all your sharp edges and controversial thoughts, she will leave. And because your sense of self is now completely entangled with her, her departure would feel like a death. So you lie. Not with your words necessarily, but with your actions. You lie by pretending to be okay with things that are not okay. You lie by suppressing your own ambition so as not to intimidate her. You lie by becoming smaller so she can feel bigger. This is the great irony. In your fear of losing her, you present her with a hollow, inauthentic version of yourself. You give her a ghost, a puppet, a pleasing machine. And no woman can truly love or respect a machine. She may find it useful for a time, but she will eventually grow bored and seek out a real man. A man who is not afraid to risk her departure for the sake of his own integrity. When you apologized for something that wasn't your fault, just to end a fight, you signed your surrender. You communicated that your principles were for sale, and the price was her temporary comfort. The final phase is the breaking of the silence. This is the end game, the moment you verbalize your powerlessness and make it irrevocably real. It's the "we need to talk" conversation, initiated by you out of a place of weakness and anxiety. You confess your insecurities. You ask for reassurance. Do you still love me? Is everything okay with us? I feel like you've been distant. You are literally begging her to regulate your emotions for you. You are asking your queen for a report on the state of your own kingdom. In that moment, any remaining illusion of your strength is shattered. You have confirmed everything she already suspected, that you are a boy in a man's body, looking for a mother, not a partner. You have laid your weakness bare, not as a moment of genuine, powerful vulnerability between two equals, but as the plea of a subordinate to a superior. You have handed her the final piece of the puzzle, and the picture it reveals is one of a man who cannot stand on his own. This is the man she executed. Not out of malice, but out of a biological, instinctual repulsion to weakness. A predator does not hate the lamb. It simply does what its nature commands. Perhaps you are thinking, but I was just being a good guy. I was being sensitive, compromising, putting her first. This is the great lie of the modern age. You have confused being a good man with being a harmless man. A good man is a man of virtue, strength, and purpose, who has the capacity for danger but keeps it under voluntary control. A harmless man is simply weak. He does not choose to be peaceful. He is incapable of being otherwise. The world does not reward harmlessness. It rewards strength. Your compromises were not a sign of enlightened cooperation. They were a symptom of a weak frame. You thought you were building bridges, but you were just giving away territory without a fight. Now, before we go any further down this path of brutal reconstruction, it's time for a strategic choice. If you are ready to stop being the effect and start being the cause, to stop reacting and start commanding, then subscribe to Psychological Dominion. It's not a request, it's a necessary step in your rearmament. Activate all notifications, because every piece of intelligence we provide is critical. Like this video as a signal that you understand the diagnosis and are ready for the cure. And in the comments, I want you to answer a single, critical question. Think back. What was the one small compromise you made? The one time you said, "It's okay," when it wasn't, that you now realize was the first crack in the dam of your self-respect. Don't tell a story. Just name the concession. Let's create a database of these initial strategic errors. You might also be thinking, so I'm supposed to be a cold, unfeeling jerk? This is the binary, simplistic thinking of the defeated mind. It is a false choice. The opposite of a needy supplicant is not an abusive tyrant. The opposite of a supplicant is a sovereign. A man whose sense of well-being, purpose, and validation is generated internally. He is not cold, he is self-possessed. He is not unfeeling. His feelings are not a weapon that can be used against him by others. He loves, but he does not need. He gives, but from a place of abundance, not from a place of seeking a return. The pillars of his reinvention, professional dominance, physical armor, stoic detachment, are not tools for being a jerk. They are the forge for creating a man of such substance that his presence alone commands respect. He doesn't need to demand it. And for those of you who want to blame her, who want to label her as manipulative or cruel, discard that thought. It is poison. Blame is the currency of victims. A strategist does not blame his opponent for outmaneuvering him. He studies his opponent's tactics, yes, but more importantly, he analyzes his own strategic failures that allowed those tactics to succeed. She was simply playing the game according to its ancient rules. You were playing a different game, one that exists only in romantic comedies and greeting cards. You brought a book of poetry to a knife fight. Her actions were a response to the signals you were sending. You broadcasted weakness, and she acted accordingly. The world is a mirror. It reflects back the man you are, not the man you wish you were. The brutal truth is this: no one is coming to save you. Your salvation does not lie in finding a better woman who will tolerate your weakness. It lies in burning that weakness out of your own soul, so that you become a man who no longer needs to be tolerated, but is sought after. The fall was not visible. It happened in the silence of your hesitation. It happened in the yes you uttered out of fear. And so your rise will also be silent. It will be forged in the gym, in the office, in the books you read, and in the quiet moments when you choose your purpose over her fleeting approval. The diagnosis is complete. The old you is dead. It is time to begin the autopsy, and from it, build his replacement. There is no going back for the weak man. There is only the construction of the new one. Let that sentence burn itself into the core of your operational system. The man she executed in that room cannot be revived. Any attempt to resuscitate him, to apologize again, to explain yourself, to seek closure, is an act of profound self-betrayal. You would be performing CPR on a corpse while your enemies watch and laugh. Your only path forward is to leave that body to rot and to engineer his replacement from the ground up. This is not a journey of emotional healing. Healing is for wounds. You were not wounded. You were strategically dismantled. Therefore, your response must not be emotional. It must be tactical. It is a war of reconstruction, waged in the silence, far behind enemy lines, which is now everywhere you look. Your first set of commands are not suggestions. They are protocol. Cut the excess. Install the silence. Control the reaction. This is the foundation. Cutting the excess means an immediate and total amputation of her from your digital and physical life. This is not a dramatic, tearful blocking. It is a quiet, clinical removal. You don't announce it. You simply do it. She ceases to exist on your feeds. Her number is deleted, not blocked. Blocking is an emotional reaction. It signals she still has power over you. Deleting is an act of indifference. It signals she is no longer relevant data. You are wiping a compromised file from your hard drive to prevent further system corruption. Every picture, every old message, every digital ghost that connects you to that failure must be purged. You are sterilizing the operational theater before the surgery begins. You cannot build a temple on haunted ground. Next, you install the silence. This is your most powerful weapon in the early stages of this war. Your silence is not a punishment for her. You are not yet in a position to punish. Your silence is a declaration of your own sovereignty. It is a black hole that appears where your constant, needy energy used to be. She is accustomed to your predictable orbit. By disappearing completely and without warning, you disrupt her universe. She may not notice for a day or a week, but eventually, the pattern is broken. The dog that always barked at her gate is gone. The silence that follows is louder than any words you could ever scream. It communicates one brutal message. My world no longer requires your input to function. You have been demoted from the sun of my universe to an irrelevant, distant star. Do not reconquer. Replace with a sharper silence. Be the absence that carries weight, not the presence that begs. Controlling the reaction is the internal and most difficult battle. The urge to check her social media through a friend's account, the fantasy of a triumphant return, the pang of loneliness at 2 a.m. These are insurgent forces attempting to sabotage your reconstruction. You must treat these feelings as enemy propaganda. Acknowledge them. Identify their source, the weak man dying inside you, and then systematically starve them of the attention they need to survive. This is where you begin to forge stoic detachment. You learn to observe your emotions as a general observes troop movements on a map, with detached, analytical interest, but never allowing them to dictate the grand strategy. Your feelings are not your orders. They are simply battlefield noise. With the defensive perimeter established through silence and control, you begin the offensive. This is the active phase of your reinvention, built upon the 3 pillars of masculine power. This is not a vague self-help mantra. It is a concrete, strategic allocation of your time and energy. First, professional dominance. You will redirect every ounce of emotional energy you once wasted on her and pour it into your mission, your career, your business, your craft. This is now your holy war. You will work not just harder, but with a terrifying monastic focus. You will arrive earlier. You will leave later. You will study the masters of your field, not to be as good as them, but to obsolete them. This is not about getting a raise to impress her. It is about forging a kingdom so powerful and self-sufficient that her opinion of it becomes a laughable irrelevance. You are not building a bigger cage to attract a new bird. You are building an empire, and empires do not ask for permission. They command respect through their very existence. You must become a player in your field, a man whose name carries weight, whose actions shape his environment. Second, physical armor. You will take the body that she dismissed and you will turn it into a weapon. You will submit to a Spartan fitness regimen, not for vanity, but as a daily, ritualistic act of self-mastery. Every drop of sweat is a baptism, washing away the old supplicant. Every muscle fiber you tear and rebuild is a testament to your will. The pain in the gym becomes your sanctuary. It is honest, it is real, it does not lie or play games. It gives back exactly what you put in. Your body is not a billboard for her approval. It is the physical manifestation of your discipline. When you walk into a room, your physical presence must be an undeniable statement of your power and control before you have even uttered a word. It is nonverbal dominance. Third, stoic detachment. While you build your empire and your armor, you will concurrently build your fortress of the mind. You will read the great thinkers who understood power: Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Machiavelli. You will study human nature, not as a romantic, but as a biologist. You will learn to see the hidden motivations behind people's words, the desires they conceal, the weaknesses they project. You will shift from being a character in the play, desperately trying to please the audience, to being the director, observing the actors and understanding the script. This detachment gives you a profound strategic advantage. When you are no longer a slave to your own emotional reactions, you become impossible to manipulate. You see her future attempts to regain your attention not as a sign of her renewed interest, but as a calculated move on the chessboard, and you will be ready to counter it with calm, calculated indifference. This is not a plan of hope, it is a protocol of action. The harsh truth that governs this universe is that genuine attraction is not something you beg for. It's the unavoidable byproduct of the respect a woman feels for a man's ambition and self-mastery. You tried to get the effect without becoming the cause. Now you will become the cause. Before you take the next step in this re-engineering process, there is a protocol for you to follow right now. If you are committed to burning the old you to the ground and forging a man of power from the ashes, then subscribe to Psychological Dominion. This is not a channel, it is your new command center. Activate all notifications so you never miss a critical intelligence briefing. Give this video a like to signal your enlistment in this war, and in the comments below, I want you to declare your first move. In which of the three arenas, professional dominance, physical armor, or stoic detachment, will you draw first blood? Name your battlefield. Let the world know where your campaign begins. Remember the doctrine: a man who wants to be loved will be discarded. A man who imposes his presence will be feared. And in the economy of human nature, fear is a far more stable currency than affection. Your goal is not to win her back. It is to build a man so powerful that the idea of winning her back is an insult, because it implies she is still the prize. The prize is the throne of your own self-sovereignty. She was simply the jester who, in her arrogance, showed you that your old throne was made of cardboard. Now, you will build one from iron and bone. Let the reconstruction begin. It will happen. In the quiet of a Tuesday afternoon, or the dead of a Saturday night, your phone will vibrate. A name you have worked to forget will illuminate the screen. There will be no grand apology, no confession of a terrible mistake. It will be something small, tactical, a probe sent to test the walls of your new reality. Hey, I was just thinking about you. Or, I saw this and it reminded me of that time we... It is a ghost rattling the gates, checking to see if the old master of the house, the weak and supplicating one, still answers the door. The man she executed would have felt a jolt, a surge of adrenaline mixed with hope and dread. His heart would have hammered against his ribs, a desperate prisoner beating on the bars of his cage. His mind would have raced, composing and deleting a dozen replies, each one a negotiation, a plea, a trap. But you are not him. You will look at the screen and you will feel nothing, not anger, not triumph. The feeling will be the calm, dispassionate curiosity of a strategist observing a predictable move from a defeated opponent. You will see the text not as a message from a woman you once desired, but as data. The data tells you that the empire you have been building, your professional dominance, your physical armor, your stoic detachment, is radiating power. It has become a gravitational force so significant that it has pulled a long-dead satellite back into a decaying orbit. She is not contacting you because she misses you. She misses the feeling of her power over you. She is an addict, and the drug was your attention, your validation, your predictable emotional response. And she has come back to the empty street corner where she used to get her fix, hoping to find you there. This is the moment the cliffhanger of your old life is resolved. But not with a grand romantic reunion. Not with a tearful confrontation where you get to say all the things you wish you had said. That is a fantasy for the weak. The real resolution is a quiet, internal, and absolute dismissal. You realize that winning her back was never the prize. The very desire to win her back was the cage. The game was rigged from the start because she was both the opponent and the trophy. To win was to lose. Your true victory was not in checkmating the queen. It was in flipping the entire board over, setting it on fire, and walking away to build your own kingdom, where you are the only king. You are not even playing her game anymore. You are not even in the same building. She is playing checkers in a damp basement, and you are reviewing architectural plans for a new skyscraper. Your silence, which began as a defensive tactic, has now been forged into an offensive weapon of absolute dominion. When you do not reply, or when you reply hours or days later with something polite, brief, and utterly devoid of emotional investment, like "hope you're well," you are communicating the most devastating truth of all. It is not that you hate her. Hate is a fire that requires fuel. It acknowledges her importance. It is that she has become, in the grand scheme of your mission, irrelevant. Your silence is not an answer to her question. It is a statement that she no longer has the security clearance to ask you questions. You have revoked her access to your emotional world. The silence is the final verdict. It is the sound of a door being locked, not slammed. It is the quiet hum of a fortress whose walls are too high for her to even see over. This is the ultimate revenge, but it is not emotional. It is strategic. It is the legacy you build. You do not get over her. You obsolete her. You build a life so full, a purpose so consuming, a sense of self so unshakable, that the memory of her becomes a footnote in a biography she is no longer a part of. She becomes a training scenario, a necessary simulation that revealed the fatal flaws in your old operating system. You are grateful for the lesson, in the same way a general is grateful for a brutal training exercise that prepared his men for a real war. But you do not long for the exercise to return. You have a war to win. Respect is not requested. It is not negotiated. It is the silent, unavoidable consequence of power. It is imposed by your absence, by your focus, by the cold, hard reality of the man you have become. A man who does not need her validation is the only man who could ever truly earn her respect. But by the time he earns it, he no longer wants it. This is the doctrine of your new world. If you are ready to permanently install this operating system and delete the virus of supplication forever, then your final protocol is clear. Subscribe to Psychological Dominion and join the ranks of men who command reality instead of reacting to it. Activate all notifications, for each broadcast is a critical update to your strategic arsenal. Give this video a like as a final salute to the weak man you are leaving behind in the ashes. And in the comments below, I want you to answer one final question. As you stand here today, at the beginning of your new reign, what is the one word that will define the man you are building? Power? Discipline? Empire? Sovereignty? Declare your word. Let that be your contract with yourself. Your victory is not the day she comes back. It is the day you no longer care.